is, and that I'm just on social media too much, and I'm seeing people, writing their beautiful pieces in like Times New Roman and Helvetica fonts, Yeah. So where is the handwritten poetry? Is it out there? Am I crazy?
I think there are a few people I will see on social media who are writing out really pretty little poems on Post-it notes or whatever, and then taking photos of them. But I would sort of assume that partly is lost just to the fact that handwriting, and I'm looking at the homeschooling moms in the room, handwriting is okay, good, I'm glad. I love cursive.
Me too, yeah.
It's just, is on the wane. And I mean, I even know among my poet friends, even when they sign in at Poetry in the Borough or we collect an email list or something, they will write and say, I apologize, I don't have good handwriting. And it's true, a lot don't.
It does sound like I was at the American Philosophical Society a few years ago in Philly, and I saw the sketchbook/journal of a 12-year-old girl from, I think it was the 16th century, and she had like the most incredible handwriting I've ever seen. 12, I'm 32. I tried really hard, but it's just, I think that it's kind of lost. Am I wrong? Like I may be removed from that community too much to really say.
No, I think you're correct. I do think, again, there are a few literary journals who may be publishing some mixed media pieces that would include handwriting and maybe some sketches and, other media as well. But for the most part, I think a lot of poets are probably just typing on the screen to compose. I don't do that. I do write in a journal. And I know a number of poets who also write in a journal. Now, I scratch out, have arrows. I mean, it's a mess. I know other poets who are able to write a poem and pretty much publish it the way they have written it out, which, I'm nowhere at that level. But, that's somebody who is sure about what they want to say. And I still wrangle it a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of level, where did you get going with your, of course.
Yeah, Jessica.
She's whispering. If you go to a poetry event, that's one of the things that struck me when I started going to your poetry event, is I came in with paper also.
Right.
But a lot of younger poets, it just doesn't even make it to paper. They just writing it right on their phone.
And just as we were discussing earlier, I think that oftentimes it's those people who don't even realize that they want to hold something. They don't even realize that they prefer this other avenue because it just hasn't been shown to them.
Right.
Or they weren't born into it. Like my nephew has a strange issue with playing kickball outside. Like doesn't understand why it's fun, And I just grew up doing that sort of thing, so it's always strange.
Or maybe we're just antiquated and we can't get over it.
we can talk about that forever, right? So, where did you get started with creative writing? Like, typically when I talk to creatives, it almost always stems from early childhood, right?
Yeah. My mom was a writer when I was very young, and she had me walking around with a sky-high brand yellow spiral notebook when I'm like 5 and 6. And if we did anything, we called it a field trip. Anything, a trip to the grocery store or a trip. I can remember going to Nashville and seeing the LNC Tower, which was the tallest building in Nashville back then. And I've got a little 4-line poem about that from, we don't have to say exactly when. But anyway, long time ago. So she really made me a writer early on, and I identified with being a writer early. But we were talking about numbers earlier. I also loved math, and so I ended up majoring in computer science in school, and I worked in software development for about 25 years.
It's all on your website.
But then I almost always had the poetry or writing going on the side, and both of those things are just really important to me. But a few years ago, I left the software business, and so now I just get to do artsy stuff.
They are important. They're also very different. I think my wife the other day showcased to me a quote from Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
Where Robin Williams' character says something like, law and medical doctors and these are great professions that everyone should aspire to, but love and poetry and art, these are things that we live for, that we can't do without.
I think poetry has, and when I say it's poetry for me, but it's being creative, has saved me at times. And I mean, I'm glad for my career. I'm glad I had a good career, that I made good money. You know, those things are very important too. Mm-hmm. But poetry has saved me.
That's amazing. So, tell us a bit about your process for writing these pieces. Is it the same as you would normally go about?
No, the pressure was horrible.
Oh.
No, really, because I usually just follow an impulse of, you know, there's a lot of times I write about what bothers me. You know, something is bothering me, so I've got to deal with that in a poem. But in this case, this was this call to produce something, and I mean, we spent an entire year talking about, at first, the suggested themes, you know, what did we want to deal with, how much, if you will, in the face of people did we want to be about being maybe a little confrontational about our themes.
That was my fault, sorry.
I think we were all there, though, you know, deciding, yeah. So we called it contrast to be
open.
Yeah, more open in interpretation. But we were coming in this time of the Murfreesboro Loves, reaction to white supremacy marches that were in the Middle Tennessee area and came to Murfreesboro as well. So all that was very much on our mind. But it's, and things, you know, going
on. It was
on.
an eventful year. There was a lot
happening.
It was eventful.
Yeah. But in terms of creating, no matter what it would have been, even though I knew that was going to be my theme loosely, I think that, again, just that pressure of knowing this is going to be poetry that's not in a book, not printed in a journal, but on the wall for people to read. And you know, I may be a pessimist, but I'm like, okay, how much is somebody actually going to read on the wall? You know, and also just that idea that it's got to integrate with what Jessica and Jenny are doing. I wanted to do that. So it did. It was much more of to me, a pressure situation of not being sure if I was going to get it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ginny had mentioned this, and you all have kind of like alluded to this multiple times, and forgive me if I should have been aware of this in advance. Did you all see what you all were working on while you were working on it?
Yeah, we shared with each other.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So, speaking of that, were there any throwaways, right? Because, I mean, some of my favorite things are throwaway, like sketches or throwaway. You know, were there any bits that didn't work out?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, so I had tons and tons. I mean, I've probably got a notebook full of stuff where I would start something and did not end up following that. Felt like it didn't work right, or, you know, would show it to one person who'd go, and you're like, okay, let me try that again. But particularly one thing that I remember was I kept trying to riff on the Pledge of Allegiance and turn into some sort of pledge to Murfreesboro.
Oh, okay.
And still have a lot of these same themes, but frame it and form it similar to the pledge. And I don't even know if y'all ever saw those because they did not make it through my daughter. However, but that is definitely one. And I came across them the other day, and I still think there's something there that I may want to explore.
So the first question you asked was, where are you from? Remember that?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
so in the poetry,
that was going to be your first thing, was where are you from?
Yeah. In the poetry world, there's a fairly well-known prompt that goes back to a couple of poets who have written these "Where I'm From" poems. And so now that's used as a prompt in writing with people of all ages. Where are you from? Which, of course, can feel like a loaded question, especially if you're not from here, you know. But this idea of, well, I am from, and it's the concrete things that you're from. You know, I'm from cans of chicken noodle soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm from, you know, whatever it is. When you get specific, you erase those stereotypes, but you tell a story. And I started, thank you for reminding me, with that idea. And I think that still echoes in some of what I ended up with here.
Oh, for sure. And they're all very user-friendly, for lack of better words.
On purpose. Accessible is the word. And,
my cousin writes some poetry where it's really hard for me, like my layman mind, to wrap around the beauty that is his work,
Yeah.
So it was very refreshing, and I think that part of looking at his work has made me kind of afraid of poetry in a sense. So immediately I saw your stuff up on the walls, and maybe look at the painting first, and then I'll come back to the heart. Then that's how it's always been in my mind from a personal experience. But I was actually really able to relate to a lot of the stories. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but you mentioned sometimes at the checkout you take the slowest lane, hoping for some kind of communication with a stranger. I'm paraphrasing. It was much more beautiful the way that you said
it. Wasn't much more,
but I can relate to that, a lot. That feeling of not just being a newcomer in a new environment that has its own roots, but also just that feeling of that we're being stripped of our social activities with one another. And I didn't grow up in that environment where my family knew the gas station attendant, or that we had a friendly relationship with the local grocer. We lived in a much more suburban environment, so it stripped away all of that feeling that you see in these great films where it seems like the community is together and they do things together and have meetings and enjoy each other's company. So I very much so related to that piece for sure. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think we can do? This might be loaded. What do you think we can do as a society to bring back a lot of those priceless and meaningful moments that we could have with one another? And you started to talk about that a little bit, but I figured based on all the text that I read that you wrote, I figured that would be a good question for you.
Well, I think that we have to find places to connect in meaningful ways. And that's kind of what we were talking about before this interview formally started. And that is that we have to have, whether they are mom and pop shops or they're the coffee shop franchise or whatever, we've got to find these places who are willing to make spaces for people to sit down and have these informal conversations. But this is a segue to why I started poetry in the borough. And I told you the story of being frustrated with going to Nashville and Nashville traffic and so forth, and I just wanted an event here in town. But the other part of that is that, when I started that, it was at this time that politics was just getting uglier and uglier, and I think that we have to listen to each other. And that is one place that we have built where people will listen to each other. And I remind them every time, it is a gift to listen to each other, or I would say to pay attention to each other, whether I'm paying attention to Jenny's paintings, to the detail, or to the detail in Jessica's photographs. That's what this is about. And so we're not getting all political, and yet we're finding these ways to relate and to get to know each other.
Great answer. Thank you so much.